Okay, let's dive in. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating story. It's about the collision of, well, big tech ambition and the intricate machinery of the U.S. government.
Yeah, we're talking Elon Musk, his brief but certainly eventful time waiting into Washington.
Right, with something called the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE. And what his experience, detailed in a recent CBS News interview, kind of reveals about trying to apply that Silicon Valley mantra, move fast and break things.
But in Washington, D.C., which is a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. And our main source here is that specific CBS News report, an article by David Pogue, published June 1st, 2025.
It gives us a pretty good inside look, an interview with Musk where he reflects on DOGE, but also touches on a few other things.
So our mission today is basically to distill that report for you. We want to pull out the key insights, understand the timeline, the actions, the reactions.
And importantly, Musk's own perspective, straight from that conversation he had with Pogue.
Okay, so where does the story really begin? The CBS report paints a picture of, well, quite a warm start between Donald Trump and Elon Musk.
Yeah, surprisingly warm, maybe. The report quotes Trump calling Musk a truly incredible guy.
And Musk apparently returned the sentiment, calling the president his first buddy, which is quite something.
It is. And it wasn't just talk. The article points out Musk put serious money behind it, like $288 million to support Trump and allies.
Wow. That kind of financial backing, you assume, buys access.
It certainly seemed to. The report mentions Oval Office invites, even sitting in on cabinet meetings. That's significant access.
Suggests they were really listening, or at least open to his ideas. And the big idea he brought was this, DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency.
Right. And he wasn't subtle about the approach. Remember that image from CPAC? The report brings it up.
Oh, yeah, the chainsaw.
Exactly. Literally wielding a chainsaw, calling it the chainsaw for bureaucracy. It set a pretty aggressive tone from the get-go.
And for about 4 months, DOGE apparently tried to live up to that image, taking the quote-unquote chainsaw across federal departments. What did that actually mean, according to the report?
Well, it meant pretty substantial cuts. The report details about 250,000 federal workers either let go or taking buyouts.
250,000 people, that's huge.
It is. And the article specifically highlights some areas that drew a lot of slashing grants and staffing at places like the EPA and NOAA.
Environmental agencies, despite, as the source notes, decades of warnings about climate change.
Right. So those specific cuts became focal points, raising questions about the priorities behind the efficiency drive.
And unsurprisingly, swinging a chainsaw in Washington, it provokes a reaction. The report says Musk, quote, did not enjoy the pushback.
Yeah, did not enjoy. Feels like maybe an understatement. The article describes everything from acts of violence and death threats.
Seriously, death threats?
Yeah, according to the report. Plus lawsuits trying to block the cuts, mandatory rehirings that rolled back some decisions, even shouting matches with cabinet members.
Wow. It really sounds like trying to disrupt government is fundamentally different than disrupting, say, the auto industry.
Totally different. You've got worker protections, legal frameworks, political realities, just the sheer scale. It's not like restructuring a tech company.
And the report indicates this wasn't just personally stressful for Musk, it hit his businesses too, right?
Oh, yeah. Big time. The article states Tesla's profits plummeted down 71% during this period.
71%.
Yep. And his personal bottom line, his net worth reportedly dropped by $100 billion.
$100 billion. That's a staggering price tag for a foray into government efficiency.
It really is. It shows how intertwined his public actions and his businesses became.
Okay, so let's fast forward to this CBS interview. It happens after he'd left Washington, though he was still talking about maybe staying involved part-time.
Right. David Pogue meets him down at SpaceX headquarters near Brownsville, Texas. And the report points out a little visual detail there.
What was that?
There's apparently a huge bust of Musk near the facility, put up by admirers.
Yep.
But it had also been vandalized by critics.
Huh. Kind of a metaphor, maybe, for the whole DOGE experience?
Exactly. A physical symbol of the really strong polarized reactions he seems to generate. Love him or hate him.
So the interview itself, it didn't start smoothly, apparently. Pogue tried asking about other administration policies that might affect his businesses?
Yeah, things like tariffs, bans on foreign students, especially relevant given Musk is an immigrant himself. But the article says Musk was reluctant.
Oh, so?
On tariffs, he apparently just mumbled something like they always affect things a little bit. And he sidestepped the foreign student question, saying he'd rather talk spaceships than presidential policy.
Stick to the comfort zone.
Seems like it. But interestingly, the report says he was willing to open up about DOGE even with all the stress it caused.
Okay, so what was his take on it all? Pogue asked him about the public backlash, the fears about cuts to things like Social Security or parks.
Musk's main defense, as reported, was that the criticism was, quote, a bit unfair. He felt DOGE became the whipping boy for everything.
Meaning
It got blamed for cuts, real or imagined. He used the example of people freaking out that DOGE would stop Social Security checks, which he said was totally false.
Okay. So deflection, partly. But did he offer any broader justification?
Yeah, he framed a lot of it ideologically. He basically said, look, I believe in smaller government. A lot of the opposition comes from people who just fundamentally want bigger government. So it's an ideological opinion, not necessarily a reaction to specific actions.
And he had that analogy, right? The DMV one.
Oh, yeah. That was pretty pointed. He said that the government is like the DMV that got big.
Ouch.
And he suggested that whenever someone proposes having the government do something, you should ask yourself, do you want the DMV to do it?
Wow. That's a very specific and maybe limited view of what government is or does, isn't it? I mean, comparing the EPA or Social Security Administration to the DMV.
It definitely simplifies things, yeah. It frames government primarily as a bureaucratic service provider, and an inefficient one at that. It really highlights that tech world focus on speed and streamlined process, maybe overlooking other government roles like regulations, safety nets, long-term investment.
Right. It kind of ignores the why behind some of the bureaucracy, perhaps. But the interview apparently took another turn then. He started talking about the administration more broadly.
Yeah, unprompted, according to the report. He made a point of saying he didn't agree with everything the administration was doing.
Oh, interesting. How did he phrase that?
He said he agreed with much of it, but there were differences of opinion, things he didn't entirely agree with.
And the report says he felt, what was it, stuck?
Yeah, stuck in a bind. Didn't want to criticize the administration he was working for, but also didn't want to, quote, take responsibility for everything this administration's doing.
That is a tricky spot to be in, especially after being so publicly associated with a major initiative like DOGE.
Definitely. Meanwhile, back in D.C., the report adds the perspective of federal workers who felt DOGE had left operations in disarray. So you have Musk talking efficiency and workers talking chaos.
And the actual savings?
Yeah.
How do they stack up?
Well, the report contrasts Musk's claim of saving around $175 billion with the initial goals, which were way higher, first $2 trillion, then maybe revised down to $1 trillion.
So $175 billion is a lot less than $1 trillion or two.
Exactly. It raises that question. Was the disruption worth the actual savings achieved, especially compared to the target?
And then came the spending bill.
Right. Just before the interview, this huge new spending bill passed the House. The CBO estimated it would add, wait for it, $3.8 trillion to the debt over 10 years.
$3.8 trillion, okay.
And Musk, in the interview, made it clear he wasn't happy. He told Pogue he was disappointed by the massive spending bill.
Why specifically?
He argued it increased the deficit and, crucially, that it undermines the work that the DOGE team is doing, basically canceling out any savings.
He had that quip too, didn't he, about the bill?
Yeah, he apparently laughed and said a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but maybe not both.
Huh. Okay. And that comment, criticizing the president's bill, that seems to have been the flashpoint.
It looks that way. CBS News released that specific clip quickly. The report says it got a lot of attention, reached the White House, the president was asked about it.
And then what?
The fallout was fast. Like within 24 hours of that clip making waves, Musk announced his time in the Trump administration was officially over. Done with DOGE.
Just like that. But his official reason was just that his time was up, right? The 130 days.
That was the stated reason at that moment, yeah. But the report points out a key detail. Before this blow-up, he had actually been saying he planned to stay involved with DOGE part-time. He called it a way of life, promised some participation.
Okay. So the timing suggests the criticism of the spending bill likely forced a much more abrupt and complete exit than he'd been planning.
That's certainly the implication. And the report adds there were other little signs maybe the relationship was cooling anyway. Like Trump apparently stopped posting about Musk on social media back in April.
Interesting. But then there was that White House event shortly after.
Right, just days later, Friday, May 30th. It seemed like damage control, maybe? The report calls it an effort to signal mutual admiration.
So what was said there?
Trump apparently said Musk was really not leaving, would be back and forth, still a friend and advisor. And Musk, for his part, praised the DOGE team and said he'd keep visiting.
So Officially out, but unofficially still around. Sounds a bit ambiguous.
Very ambiguous. Politically convenient ambiguity, perhaps.
So for now, officially, he's back focusing on his extensive list of companies.
Yeah, Tesla, Starlink, XXAI, Neuralink, Optimus Robots, Boring Company, SpaceX.
Yep.
It's quite the portfolio.
And his rationale for juggling all that?
According to the report, it's all driven by this grand vision. These projects improve the probable trajectory of civilization. He talks about ensuring the long-term survival of life and consciousness, making life multiplanetary.
Big goals. And the article ties this back neatly to the interview setting, right? At SpaceX.
Exactly. Right after the interview, Pogue was invited to watch the 9th launch of Starship.
Starship, which has had its share of dramatic tests.
That's putting it mildly. Rapid unscheduled disassemblies is the famous SpaceX term for explosions. So yeah, a lot riding on this 9th attempt.
And the report captures a quote from Musk as he headed to the launch.
Yeah, it's a memorable one. He apparently said, "I can't guarantee success, but I can guarantee excitement."
Can't guarantee success, but I can guarantee excitement. That feels like it could apply to more than just rockets, maybe.
Perhaps even his time in government. And, well, the outcome of that 9th launch.
What happened?
The report says it spun out of control during re-entry. Didn't make it.
So excitement delivered, success. Not so much on that one.
Right.
Okay, so we've traced this whole arc from the initial first buddy enthusiasm and access through the DOGE chainsaw approach, the really intense pushback, the financial costs.
Then the ideological defense, the tension over that massive spending bill, the sudden exit with its lingering ambiguities.
And finally, back to the world of high-stakes tech development, underscored by that Starship launch, ambition, excitement, and, well, sometimes spectacular failure.
It really throws into sharp relief that tension, doesn't it? Between a disruptive, tech-driven vision for efficiency and the sheer, complex, often resistant reality of a massive system like government.
Yeah, and it makes you think about that Musk quote, "Cannot guarantee success, but I can guarantee excitement." Is that a viable approach for government reform? Can you really move fast and break things when the things you might break are public services or established legal processes?
Or when the system itself is designed in many ways to prevent rapid unilateral change. Checks and balances, regulations, public accountability, things that slow down the chainsaw, but are there for a reason. The report mentioned lawsuits, mandatory rehirings. That's the system pushing back in ways a private company doesn't face.
Right. Is that inherent resistance just inefficiency, as Musk seems to frame it with the DMV analogy? Or is it a necessary feature of democratic governance? And what does efficiency even mean in that context if it leads to what workers call disarray or gets overshadowed by massive new debt?
Exactly. So maybe the provocative thought to leave you with is this. How far can that guarantee excitement, not success philosophy really take you when applied not just to rockets, but to the fundamental workings of government? What are the real costs and benefits of bringing a chainsaw to bureaucracy? Something to ponder.